Okay, so some things that I'm going to discuss in this video is what to expect after surgery. And I'm going to talk about some things to know or consider before surgery. And I'm also going to give an updated health report of myself. And at the end of the video, I'm going to touch back on myself and share something about myself as well. So it's very important that you stick around throughout this whole video because it will be very helpful. Another thing I want to kind of touch on, I know I have kind of been slacking with my health related videos on my channel because I do personally feel like I'm not a model patient and I'm not sitting here, you know, setting the standards and this, that, and the third, but I do want people to remember, and I have to remember myself that at the end of the day, I'm human. And y'all, nobody's perfect by far. And I know sometimes I feel like I'm not just the model patient. So that's something that I kind of struggle with. I'm young and I still like to go out and have fun and live life, y'all. And I know people will kind of judge and have their opinions, but they're gonna do that anyway. I want to make this video as personable and as possible. I did write down some things just because I want to make sure that I touch on everything that I want to say. It's so easy to get in front of the camera and just ramble, and you will completely lose your spot and your thought. So I want to make sure that I get in front of the camera and just really just get out and get to the points of what I want to get to or what I want to say. Part of the reason I'm making this video is because someone actually did reach out to me on Instagram in my DMs, and they just asked me how I've been feeling after transplant, and it made me realize that I don't have any really updated videos on my channel about how I've been doing after surgery, how I'm feeling, or anything like that. So I want to make sure that the subscribers that I did gain from sharing my health experience, that I continue to touch on my health experience throughout my YouTube journey. I am so glad that people are actually finding my video, because I know for me personally, when I was going through, you know, needing to have a liver transplant, I love YouTube, and I was searching YouTube high and low, and I found one story of somebody sharing their experience when they were diagnosed with PSC. But everything else on YouTube was mainly just doctors talking, and it was just like fact videos, and it wasn't really a lot of people sharing their experiences, which I wish I would have seen more of. So I'm glad to make this video. The first thing I'm going to talk about is just how I've been feeling. So after my surgery, I have been feeling great. I have not had any rejection scares. My lab, I'm not going to say my lab results have been perfect, because they want to get your certain levels of medication in your body to a certain level, if that makes sense. So like I take y'all, I cannot pronounce these medications, but one of the medications that I take, basically tricrolimus, if I'm saying that right, your level of that has to be to a certain level, and sometimes mine would be too high or it would be too low, so they would alter that medication a lot. But now it's kind of to the point where it's stable. That is a lifelong medication for anybody who is wondering. I hope that I motivate some people that have to have surgery, or some people that are after their surgery, to see that you can have surgery and go on and live a normal life and not have to be scared about having any rejection scares. Y'all, it's all about living life. And yeah, so I have been feeling great. How am I feeling? Am I having any of the symptoms that I had prior to surgery? No, I do not have any symptoms that I had prior to surgery. If you had a liver transplant and you're experiencing symptoms that you had prior to surgery, that may be a symptom of your liver actually rejecting. So you want to make sure that you're reaching out to your doctors, because you should not have any of the same symptoms like the itching, the jaundice. You shouldn't have any of that. Okay, so I want to talk on what to expect after surgery. So one thing I want to talk about that I wasn't really warned about was my incision leaking. So when you have a liver transplant, which I am going to show my stomach sometime in this video to show y'all what my surgery scar looks like, you are depending on which hospital you go to, depends on what your incision will look like. Because I dual listed, I was on the list for multiple hospitals, and so everybody explained to me how they did their surgery. And I do know that some people, the way they do their incision is different. Y'all, my camera stopped recording at some point, but I do want to say that the incision that I'm talking about is where your drains are, or where your drains were during surgery, and they will leak to the point where you're soaking through bed sheets. My first week, or when I was in the hospital, I soaked my bed sheets almost every night. And then when I got home for the first 2 weeks, I soaked through my bed sheets at home. So some things that you want to buy or have prior to having your transplant would be just kind of like pads to lay on in your bed, because you will soak through your clothes. I'm glad I realized it stopped recording for some reason, and I was just going on and on. But I know I stopped at the incision is different. Also, nobody really talks about the wound. Okay, so the actual incision, after you have surgery, you're gonna have staples. When it starts to heal, it's gonna kind of still look open. And I know after I got my staples removed, which really was not painful, after I got my staples removed, I know that my incision did still look like it was open, but I would go to the doctor and they would be like, oh, that looks normal, it looks good. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. And I noticed towards the lower end of my stomach is where it still looked open. It will eventually start to get not a scar. What is it? It'll get a scab over it. It will eventually get a scab over it. And I know like parts of my incision, the scar was easy, like the scar healed easy. And then the other parts of it, it was kind of like when I would take a shower, it would fall off, and I kind of felt like it took a while to heal. Which I'm gonna be honest, there were some days where I would just take a wash off instead of a shower, because I noticed that my scab was falling off and I wanted it to heal. So I would take like a wash off, maybe like 2 or 3 days, and then there were days, after that I would take a shower because I wanted my incision to heal, and the water kept soaking the actual scab and it was falling off. So that's another thing to think about. I can't really give you the time on when your incision will heal. Like I said, I wish I had been documenting everything so closely with my health, but I want to say that I got my staples removed maybe about 2 months after surgery, 2 or 3 months, around that mark. You don't keep them long. Another thing to think about is medicine cost. Okay, I know that prior to surgery, they will quote you things about medicine. Okay, medicine will cost this, it will cost that. My medicine was actually cheaper than I was told. I was told, like, I'm thinking maybe they quoted me like the highest possible, but I want to say when I was in the hospital, and that was probably the most medicine that I took, eventually I started coming off of things. I would say I probably paid like $150, $160 for my medicine. Which, another thing to think about, when you go into the hospital, you are gonna have to purchase your medicine before you leave. I know I had to, and I'm thinking most hospitals will be like that, because they're not gonna play with you about being able to afford your medicine and your medicine cost. One thing that I did experience after surgery was back pain. I had back pain for the longest. I know at least a month prior, not prior, but I know at least a month after surgery that I had back pain, which going into the back pain, if the hospital you're transplanted at is anything like mine, after a month of surgery, they're going to try to wean you off of your pain medicine. So they're going to start questioning you more about, you know, how long are you having pain? How long is your pain lasting? When are you taking medicine? They're going to really start to question you more and more about your pain medicine, just because they don't want you to get addicted to it, because that's a real problem in the United States right now, is substance abuse and people being addicted to pain medicine. I know that personally because I used to work in that. So they are going to question you about that. Another thing to think about is commuting to your appointments. So luckily, when I had my surgery, the hospital that I had it at, I only lived 30 minutes away from. That's without surgery. Without traffic. Why can't I talk tonight? That's without traffic. With traffic, probably about 45 minutes or so. But that's another thing to think about, because the first month after getting transplant, you're going to be required to go to the doctor every week. For me, to be honest, I ended up going to the doctor every week for like the first 5 or 6 months, because I still had to get labs drawn because of my medication levels and them wanting to make sure everything was okay and that I had the proper dosage of certain medications. Another thing to think about, which this is gonna go more towards women. Women, if you haven't had children yet, like me, like myself, y'all, I'm only 30, so I haven't had any kids yet or anything like that. But if you're wanting to conceive, just know that you have to wait. I'm thinking it's at least a year or two after you had surgery, but I know that's going to depend on your lab work and how your blood tests are looking. But you cannot just run off, have a liver transplant and conceive, try to conceive a baby or try to have a baby. Because one of the medications that you're on can cause birth defects after surgery, basically. So they're going to want your pregnancy or you having children is going to have to be planned. I know my doctor, one of the first things she started talking to me about, like, she was kind of like, I know you're young and, I really don't have to have this talk with a lot of my other patients, but I have to have it with you. You don't need to get pregnant right now. And once you get to that mark where you're trying to conceive, you need to talk to your doctor about it. And so one of your medicines that you're on, they actually need to wean you off of it and have you take something else. So that's something to think about for women. Another thing I want to touch on, y'all, that they don't talk about, it's going to be hard to lose weight after you have a liver transplant. So when I first had surgery, I instantly lost weight. I want to say I instantly lost at least 12 to 15 pounds. At least 12 to 15 pounds. I instantly lost because I gained weight because of surgery. Well, after that, y'all, and I know this for a fact because I was working out as much as it was tolerated for me to work out, and I was gaining weight. Keep in mind that you're going to be on a steroid. Prednisone, if you're taking that, y'all, that is a steroid, and most liver transplant patients, if not all of them, have to take that medicine, which is a steroid. What do steroids do? They make you gain weight. So it's just something to think about when you're after surgery. I know with me, I kind of took that hard because I got to a point where I was really working out and I just wasn't seeing results, and I kind of got down on myself about it. But that's just something to think about. Okay, and back to women with the birth control. So your doctor is probably going to talk to you about IUD, which that's another method of birth control where you're not actually taking a pill that's metabolizing through your liver. So that's just a little pointer there. Let's see, where am I? Okay, I have down here pay for surgery. And what I mean by that is, okay, when I actually got the call that I was going to have a liver transplant, the hospital that I had it at, you actually go to their emergency room when you're called. You tell them, hey, I'm a liver transplant patient. They immediately take you back. You fill out, you know, your paperwork and stuff to go into the hospital basically. And y'all, I had to pay. That probably was something to do with my insurance. I'm not saying I had to pay thousands of dollars, but I did have to pay like at least $150 to $200. So that's something to think about. And then on top of that, when I got out of the hospital, I had to pay for my medicine. So, you know, it's just something to think about. If you're going through this, saving money is a must. You have, you know, once you get on that liver transplant list, and prior to that, just start trying to save money the best way you can, because there are a lot of expenses that come up. This is not a cheap experience that you're going to go through, but I'm not saying that to stress you out. You know, everything will definitely work out, but if you can avoid putting yourself in certain situations, avoid it by far. One of the symptoms that I had after surgery was tightness in my stomach. I don't know. I felt like it's weird because this is the way I'm going to explain it. I felt like when they were sewing my stomach up, like maybe they sewed it too tight, but it's like I didn't feel that feeling all the time. It was only if I got full. So if I ate too much, my stomach would feel really, really tight to the point where it was painful and it was uncomfortable. And also my stomach felt numb, which the tightness, I would say, went away. The tightness didn't stay for a long time. It went away after a few months, but the numbness stayed a little bit longer. But now I will say I had my liver transplant July 31st of last year, and I don't have the tightness or the numbness in my stomach anymore. Like I said, the tightness was the first thing to go away, and then the numbness eventually did, and I never even realized that it went away. Also, one of the things that I did deal with after surgery was shortness of breath. I was very short of breath walking around the house, even to go upstairs to the kitchen, which my room is downstairs in the basement. Yes, when I knew I was going to have surgery, I moved in with my parents just because I didn't know how long I was going to be without work. And then also I ended up falling ill 2 years ago, which if you watch my liver transplant story, then you'll hear all about that experience. I don't want to touch back into that too much, but I will definitely link that video in my description box, and it will be in the end card of this video. But shortness of breath, and also I had to get approved. I had to show my doctor that I was able to walk up and down stairs, because that's one thing they do not want you walking up and down stairs. Kind of with the house that my parents live in, that's something that I can't avoid because the kitchen is upstairs and I gotta eat. So I just had to show that I was able to do that. So that's something to think about. Let's see. Okay, so I think that's everything that I wanted to touch on, and I kind of wanted to touch on yeah, that's everything that I wanted to talk about, the what to expect after surgery. The things that I brought up, I don't think all of them are things that you could find or you will find on the internet. You know I Googled a lot prior, but yeah. So now I'm going to talk about some things to know or consider before surgery. And some of these things may not necessarily be things that you can Google, but these are certain things that I learned, and I feel like they can help you guys. So, okay, finding hospitals. So when I was first diagnosed in Florida, my doctor actually referred me to, is it Ochsner Hospital? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I think it's in New Orleans, Louisiana somewhere. I was referred to that hospital. They did not take my insurance. And so my doctor basically told me that I could try to shop around and, you know, find a hospital, basically. And when you're finding hospitals, some things to consider is med scores. If you're a liver transplant patient, pre or post, you know what a MELD score is. A lot of hospitals transplant you based off of your MELD score. So some hospitals require you to have a higher MELD score and to get transplanted, meaning you have to be very, very sick to get transplanted. And some patients require you to have a lower score. I will say the hospital that I got transplanted at kind of was on the lower spectrum of that. You could have a lower score and get a transplant, which was a very good thing. So that's something to take into account for, because like me, through my whole experience, my MELD score never went past 25. I think 25 was the highest it ever got. When I was in the hospital, maybe like 2 years ago, when I fell ill, I probably had a extremely high MELD score, but at that time I was not on the list, so that was not recorded. Also, with finding hospitals, you want to try to figure out, and this may be something that you may find from doing research or just speaking to other patients, but when you're in those waiting rooms, talk to some of those people that are in the waiting rooms of, you know, at the clinic that you're going to with your liver transplant. Talk to some of those patients and see how long they've been on the list, how long they've been waiting and stuff like that, because I did learn that some hospitals actually have higher waiting times than others. Some people, their transplant list does not really move. It moves very slowly. And there's other hospitals, their transplant list is, y'all, it's moving like this. And the reason why I say that is because I actually was on the transplant list at Tulane Hospital in New Orleans. I was on the list at Emory Hospital in Atlanta, and I was on the list at UAB Hospital in Birmingham. Now, I originally started off on the list at Tulane because at the time when I was diagnosed, I was living in Florida, and that was the closest liver clinic to me. Later on, I found out that this is not to bash any hospitals or anything like that, or, you know, but later I did find out that Tulane's list does not move at the speed of UAB and Emory's. Their list actually moves a little slower. And a doctor actually told me that, which it turned out to be true. So I will say anybody looking that you're in the areas are not too far from Emory Hospital in Atlanta. They have a quick moving list, y'all. A quick moving list that I will say you will probably most likely, once you get on the list, get transplanted within a year or less. UAB's list I was actually on for 7 months before I got transplanted. Emory Hospital, I think I touched on this in my other video, but I am just going to say this because it's relevant, that I was dual listed. So I actually got a call from Emory Hospital first offering me a liver, drove all the way there. The organ was no good. 2 weeks later, I got the call at UAB. So Emory Hospital, before I got my first call, I was on the list there for a year exactly. UAB, I was on there 7 months. Also with UAB, I noticed that people who started around the same time I did, you know, that got on the list at the same time I did, because we would be in waiting areas talking, getting to know each other. After I had my transplant, I actually seen them in the waiting room with their follow-up appointments. So I say this to say that we all got transplanted around the same time. So the list is moving. I also want to say you have to make sure that you have a support system. Some people actually don't know this, but if you're watching this video because you're somebody who is going to need a transplant, or if you're watching this video so that you can help somebody who is going to have one, basically, when you go to the doctor and you have a liver evaluation, they're going to ask a series of questions, and they're going to want to know about your support system. If you do not have a support system, you don't qualify for a liver transplant. And I know people don't actually realize that. But yes, if they feel like you have nobody to take care of you after your surgery, y'all, you will not have surgery. So even if that is a friend, a family member, just make sure you have an established support system in place. Also, yes, the importance of keeping a packed bag but in your room once you are on the list. Yes. So I'm gonna say this based off of experience because my doctor said it. You know, you want to make sure you keep a packed bag and you have this, that, and the third. So when I got my first phone call, y'all, I couldn't think. When Emory Hospital called me and told me that they had an organ for me, it was just like my whole thought process. Y'all, I left work without clocking out. I couldn't think. I got home, I didn't have a backpack. I ran upstairs trying to wash clothes, knowing good and well I had a certain amount of time. I had to make it to the hospital, so I didn't have time to do that. I called my mom. My mom even said, like, when I called her, she was at work. She said she couldn't think. It was like we were in such shock, and we knew the phone call would come one day, but we were such in shock and awe that it's like we were like, and she had to run home and pack clothes. I was just throwing stuff. It got to the point, y'all, where because we had a time crunch. My dad was like, in basically, I live like 2.5 hours from Atlanta. My dad was like, you just gonna have to go and I'm gonna have to bring clothes to you. So that's just something to think about as well, because you hear it enough, but y'all, when you get that phone call, you'll be in shock. Now, when I got the second phone call, y'all, I was in my room asleep and I actually missed the phone call and my mom got it. So yeah. This is something I want to say to the caregivers and the friends of someone who is going through this. Just make sure that you're supportive and make sure you're doing your research. I don't know how many times that it wasn't my family, because my family were going, my mom, my dad went to most, if not every, of my appointments, and so they knew what was going on. They did their research, you know, they got paperwork, but it was more of people who were friends who I explained to them what I was going through, but they still didn't get it, still didn't realize. And then y'all, you don't know how many text messages or calls I got after I had my surgery where people would say to me, I didn't realize you were that sick. I didn't realize this was going on. I didn't realize. If you care about somebody, and that's just how I am, if you tell me, hey, I have this going on, I'm gonna research so I know how to be there for you better. And I just think that's a tip for people. Just something, you know, to think about. I also want to add to this section that basically people will assume that you're an alcoholic because you need a liver transplant. People will automatically assume that, yeah, you have a drinking problem. If you know anything about being on the transplant waiting list or needing a liver transplant, you will know that you do not qualify for a liver transplant if you are an alcoholic. I repeat, you do not qualify for a liver transplant if you are an alcoholic. I know we all know this if we're needing a transplant, but you never know who will stumble across this video. Now, if you have made it to the end of this video, then I'm going to share something about myself that I discovered after surgery, that it hasn't really been easy to get on my YouTube platform and talk about, which my platform is not big, but I feel like I need to get on here and say this because I made a video about my health. So as you know, some of you may know because I didn't know this, after you have surgery, they keep your old organ to actually test it, just to make sure that diagnosis is correct, and you know, they can look for anything else. It just better helps them really evaluate your liver when it is out of your body. With that being said, after my liver was evaluated, I was misdiagnosed. I did not have PSC. I actually do not have a liver disease. I was actually diagnosed with something called IgG4 related disease, which y'all, it is something even rarer than PSC. And I've done my research, I've looked it up, and all I know is, y'all, I feel great, I feel lovely. Because of that, I'm actually going to be on prednisone, a low dose of prednisone, which is the steroid, for the rest of my life. But I do not have symptoms of anything. I am feeling great. I actually struggled to come on here and talk about this because you know, just feeling like people are gonna judge and just feel like, oh, you had surgery and you didn't need to have surgery. I just want to say this, that when I finally did go to the doctor, I went to the doctor because I was showing active signs of liver failure. So at the point of me going to the doctor, y'all, my liver was already damaged by whatever was causing it to be damaged. I do have a health history of where I got my gallbladder removed, and it could have been linked to whatever was going on with my liver. I don't know. I do know that I don't regret any experience that I went through, because at the end of the day, it made me who I am today. And yeah, it just made me who I am today. And it has really made me appreciate life, people so much more. I do feel like we live in a society where everyone is for themselves, and you have few people who actually care about people and genuinely check on them, you know. So we're kind of in one of those times. I do also want to make you aware of that sometimes doctors do not know everything, y'all. I know some people think that's hard to believe, but doctors do not know everything, and people are misdiagnosed all the time. I kind of want to tie that into what we're currently going through right now in the world, which I can't say the word here on YouTube because they're actually flagging people's videos for talking about it. But kind of like what's going on right now, how they don't really know a cure. They don't have no idea what's causing this. Why is it spreading so rapidly? This, that, and the third. How is it spreading? Y'all, it's kind of the same thing. PSC is so rare. IgG4 related disease is so rare. They're, you know, doing research and trying to figure out, you know, the causes. Why does this happen? Why does this happen? So you kind of have to just, and not just feel like they know everything. And once you have that understanding, it will better help you later on in life. It'll just help you in general. Also, I want to talk about the importance of participating in research studies. I currently work in research, but yeah, I want to talk about the importance of actually participating in research studies. It is so important, y'all, because for situations like what's happening now, it helps them actually cure people and things, and you know, actually helps them cure people. And it's really, really great. A lot of people are scared to actually participate in research studies because they think that you're going to be diagnosed, you know, that they're going to stick you with you know, a disease and try to see how your body heals from it. And no, some research studies are just surveys, y'all. Some of them are just, they want your health records. Some of them are just, they may take blood samples from you. So it's just something to think about. My eyes were completely open to it once I actually started working in research, and once I actually started going through something health-wise, I realized that research is so important, y'all. So anyway, if you made it to the end of the video, y'all, thank you so much for watching. I hope this was very helpful. And if you are currently on your journey, if you need a liver transplant, if you've had one, y'all just remember to continue to think positive, continue to keep your head up, and just pray. And I promise you, if you look at me, I'm a living testimony that somebody can go through something so major and come out on top of it. And I know you read horror stories and you see things, but y'all just know that if you keep a positive mindset, positive things will come. So anyway, I hope this video helped, and just make sure that you subscribe to my channel, so I will be checking in periodically with health updates and you can actually see how I'm doing in my videos. And I hope y'all have a good day and stay blessed and stay healthy.